The mid-season buys are not only in the bin, they're in the rear vision mirror. Yep, that is it. Best 18 is done. It is now 8 weeks left in your AFL Fantasy season and 8 weeks left to get your team to that perfect position to hopefully get you in a personal best space. Whether that be a ranking or a league objective, here at the Coaches Panel, we got you covered. Who are the best trade targets for the week? Yet again, I'm here to count you down through who I believe are the best prospects from 1 through to 10. Are you ready for my number one trade target? I hope for your sake you've got this guy already, but the fact that he's still at only 38% tells me it's a scary low number for a guy doing what he's doing. Tom McCarthy is my number one trade target. Now, the 38% ownership is probably more indicative of the amount of active participants in AFL Fantasy at the moment. The fact is, a guy he's gone up, 200K almost already. It's closer to, sort of 150, 160K. Got a negative break even of 38, averaging 98. Wild to me that anyone that's been active in their AFL Fantasy side over the last 2 rounds doesn't have him, but there is clearly still a high percentage that don't. If you've got him, great. If you don't, last chance to correct before it really starts to hurt. But I think the good conversation to have around Tom McCarthy is, can you build a side and a structure for at least one more week where he is an on-field prospect? Now, you've got players that are under some injury clouds like a Harry Sheasel, a Lachie Whitfield, so that decision might get taken away from you anyway. Personally, in an ideal setup, I do not want Tom McCarthy on field. Now, from a form perspective, it's a different conversation, but rookies are rookies are rookies. And while he is a mid-season and a slightly more mature age prospect as well, I don't love that for you. If you haven't got him, correct it. If he has to be on field or you can loop him on field this week, perfect. But if he's on field in your best available options by design, it could work out for you. But I think your risk profile of your AFL Fantasy side, just a little higher than I'd like it to be. My number two trade target for you. I'm going to keep you in the cash generation. And I think that's still an important space to be in. But let me tell you who it is before we roll into why. My number 2 trade target this week, Harry Rowston from the GWS Giants. With 8 weeks left to go, I think a lot of teams are, post the 2 moves they've got this week, pretty much at a space where they go, I've got a premium-esque lineup across all of my 22 spots. Now, that premium-esque might include a Callum Mills at D6, a Ned Long at M8. Gosh, even an Isaac Rankin at an F6. We're all got these underperformers somewhere in our side. But we are at this point of the year while we are trying to maximize points on field. It should never be at the perspective of completely culling any chance of generating cash. Because, for instance, if you are a Ned Long owner, or maybe a better one is a Callum Mills at D6, and you don't have a Locky Ash, an Isaiah Wanganeen-Miller, these 2 defenders that I think are going to be the best 2 defenders on the run home based on their form and fixture. Well, how are you going to make up that 300, 400,000 to get there? You've still got to find ways to generate not only scoring on field, but points. And I think some teams are going to really hamper themselves by thinking points on field, and unintentionally stunt themselves from being able to get up to where they'd like to. And especially when we've got a couple of nice cash generators at the moment. That's why Harry Rowston sits in there. Under 350,000, a negative break even. His last 2 games, 60-plus centre-bounce attendances. I know Stephen Cornelio is back in the VFL this week, but they clearly got an eye to the future, and Cogs wasn't in there anyway when he was spending some time in the Giants lineup at the start of the year. I like what they're doing. They're building this midfield around Callaghan and Green, and Rowston adds a little bit of a different dynamic. And so while I haven't hit any upgrades for you yet, I think it's important to remind ourselves while we're in this premium trade season, not to forego the importance of building depth in your side, which really comes at not giving away all your cash generation options. Who's my number 3 trade target? All right, let's go up. I think the best premium to get into this week, based on matchups, uniqueness, and form, Jye Caldwell. He's over $1 million. Can you believe it? He was near that 900K marker just 5 or 6 weeks ago. He's been outstanding in the last 5, going an average of 117. He has everything you want of a premium. He's got unbelievable high scoring capacities, 130s, 140s, are right within his ability. The second thing he has is a uniqueness in ownership. Just 5% of the competition have their hands on Jye right now. And then the third part to go alongside it is this week, he's got the number 2 matchup for inside mids over the last 5 rounds, the number 2 easiest. That's up against the Gold Coast Suns. So when you get a guy that's got a great matchup with high scoring, still affordable at under 1.05 million and unique, just ticking all those boxes. He is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best upgrade moves you could make this week. And people that are wanting to jump off along, Adam Chera, who's been outstanding up until just a couple of days ago, this is a really nice pathway to get you there. My number 4 trade target for the week is the 5th most expensive player in the game. He's got an average of 120 in his last 3. And in fact, I think it's in his last 5. There's just 3 guys in AFL Fantasy that are going at an average of 120 plus. One is Grundy, one is Smith. The other is this guy. My number 5 trade target, we'll get to in a sec. My number 4, Nasiah Wanganeen-Milera. Just an outstanding season to go 109 for the year, let alone that 120 plus over the last 5. A Hawthorn matchup this week is neutral positionally for where he is. But if you don't have him yet, it's going to cost you some salary cap to get there. But I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, because after this week, it is a sea of green for players that play some designated kick-in, wing, halfback playmaking roles that St Kilda have. Like, they've got Sydney, Geelong, Melbourne, North Melbourne, Richmond and Essendon just in the next couple of weeks. Yes, a Jordan tag could absolutely well and truly go his way, but on paper, these are all outstanding matchups. And if he's unique in a rankings battle, or if you're going head-to-head trying to make finals or in finals, this may just be the one premium I would like to not be unique against. If you own him and your opposition doesn't, loving what that life is dishing up to you. Unbelievable. Yes, it's not cheap. Yes, it's really expensive, but he has been outstanding all year and seems to be only getting better as the year goes on. Then my number 5 trade target. It's my last real money grab move for the week, because there's a bunch of really good ones under 400K. And I'm not even including a Manny Liddy in this mix, who genuinely could be a good downgrade. I've got Rston ahead, but definitely Liddy's in the mix. My number 5 trade target for you this week, forward eligible, Archer May. You need to keep that money moving. You need to keep that cash generation. And I think he's going to play a lot of weeks with Langford now out for a bunch of time. And gosh, Bombers just can't get that body right in many players. The fact is, he's going on an average of 58. They want to get some games into this kid. He looks like a serious player. They've done a great job picking him up, and you can see him, Caddy, Kako forming this really nice nucleus of a forward line for many years to come. It's an easy way to move off some of the deadline options that you've got in your side if you've got some DPP available to you. You're making 30-odd K off of a Cooper Simpson. You're making 50-odd K off a Hugh Boxall type. And while that doesn't feel like a lot of money, it's at least reactivating that spot. And again, we talked about it with the likes of a Rowston. Coaches that do not prioritize squad depth and cash generation, it means your ability to get into the top end guys that you don't have, like a Caldwell, like a Wanganeen Millera, like a Kennedy, who's probably going to come down a little bit after a low-ish score from him. It just limits you from being able to get the top end of the tree that are clearly the performers at the time. I like this as an option. A negative break even, under 300k, clears off a dead red dot while still giving you a playing option as bench coverage. I actually really quite like it. So my top 5 trade targets. I've got 2 primos and I've got 3 value options for you. It's McCarthy, it's Rowston, it's Caldwell, it's Wanganeen Millera, and then it's May. They are my top 5 trade targets. You want to hit some upgrades, City? All right, let's help you with that. Number 6, Locky Ash. Maybe not where you thought we'd get to, but let me talk you through it. He's just a little under the 1.05 million, going an average of 104, break even of 111. So he's around about the mark of what he's going to be. But the Giants' run from now to the end of the year, outstanding for a player that's that playmaker off halfback that takes and distributes the ball from kick-ins. It's an outstanding run. It is a wall of green. And alongside this wall of green is a guy that is already incredibly consistent for us. Last 6 games, 100-plus score. He hasn't since round 3, so since they've come off their first bye, his lowest score is 89. And so we talk about players hurting you in either unique matchups or in rankings with poor basement scores, especially now that we're not in best 18 where scores start to fall away. Like, for example, you're a Sam Darcy owner, you cop a 50? Oh, that hurts. Now, I know it's the variance of the type of player he is in position. I understand that. But it's that type of thing, right? Same with an Adam Chera last week. These 50s or 60s from guys that you've paid significant salary cap for can really handbrake your year. And so with a player like Locky, who for the better part of 3 and a bit months has now 4 consistently delivered for us, and with an outstanding fixture and relative uniqueness based on delivery of scoring, outstanding pick. If you're already a Naz owner and you're looking for something into that back line, that's the spot to go. I know some are happy to run the McCarthy at D6 for a couple more weeks. Personally, for me, I'd much rather play the loophole game with it rather than bank on it. And Ash, for me, sits right in that spot. He's an outstanding performer this year. He gets so much fantasy-friendly scoring based on how the Giants move the ball. And even with Lachie Whitfield in that side, moving back into the defensive line, it's not hurting him. He's got ceiling about him too. Go back and look at some of those scores. There's some nice, juicy games in there. If you can't get up to that spot, but still need to improve your defensive line a little bit, let me give you another. Last defensive eligible one I'll give you today. Kobie McKercher. Just over $750,000. He's my number 7 trade target. Since that mid-season buy and since the role change, he's coming in now at an average of 94.5. In the last 5 rounds, only 9 defensive eligible players are averaging 100 plus. Just the 9. And so for a guy that is anywhere from 300 to 400,000 cheaper, and by the way, all of those players are 950k or more. And so for 300,000, 200,000, 400,000, if you want to head up to the Naz territories, you are getting a guy who, for the most part, on that group of 10 that's going 100 plus over the last 5, it's 9, but we're going to round it out to be 10. He's 5 points per game off them. And we talk about the importance of DVP, which is the defense versus position, what a player is doing versus players in this and against this line, against this opposition. It's great. Now, it's not Ash territories. It's not Whitfield territories. It's not Wanganeen Millera territories. But we're talking 200,000 to 400,000 cheaper and potentially within 10 to 15 points. Imagine what that $200,000 you've got right now can do on top of an Adam Chera, on top of a Ned Long, on top of a insert underperforming player here. It could be, in totality, a serious improvement to your team. I really like Colby McKercher. He's been one of those real great picks that if you've made some certain moves during the mid-season buys, they've really delivered for you. McKercher's been one, Bergman's been one, and another has been the arrival to the big time of Luke Jackson. He's my number 8 trade target this week. He was a little low and quiet in the first half. There's been some commentary in media circles as to why, but regardless, he came out yet again and delivered a really nice triple-digit score for his owners. He's now crept over that $1 million mark and showcased that even when Darcy's in the side, he's now building a scoring floor that is not purely getting absolutely critiqued and killed when he's in the team when they roll and ruck share. He's finding ways to score over these last 5 weeks, really. He's shown a way to show that together they can work. He's the number 2 ranked forward by average over the last 3 games and the number 3 ranked forward over the last 5. So he is in as good as form as anyone. And look, there are some tougher matchups that sit through there, I'm not going to lie, especially for rucks with the Swans, with the Hawks, with the Pies. It ain't going to be easy. But also, if you look back through what he's done over the last 5, 6, 7 weeks, there's not just this beautiful green run like there was the one a couple of weeks ago. But outside of that, it's been, it's okay. There's some tough stuff. There's some easy stuff. It's not a high trade priority for me, but it's up there. Not going to lie. Number 3 ranked forward in the last 5 games, over $1 million. I know it's getting pricey, but if you've built your team's value right, you're building that cash generation still through your bench with the likes of a Rston and a May and maybe a McCarthy as well. Yeah, you're going to be okay. The run's a little tougher now, but the opportunity is still there. And as many, outside of politely a Martin, a Kennedy, or a Smith, he's the one I've got the highest trust in of the rest of the pack to score in and around that 100 marker. That's why I'm happy to put him in there. And again, his ownership is on the lower side. 2 more players to go. One, if you've looked at the thumbnail on this episode, you shouldn't be surprised to see him. The other, it's got a gigantic asterisk caveat on it, but I'll talk you through that in a moment. My number 9 trade target for you this week, Errol Gordon. Yeah, I got to put him here. Look, for a guy that's only averaging 98, he's still the 10th most expensive guy in AFL Fantasy. He's coming off the back of a 124 last week, and that's basically his break even this week. So certainly not a you must get this week. But my, oh my, he looked good. And he was quiet in the first quarter. His gut running, his ability to find space. It was that great reminder to watch on Friday night against the Doggies of why, for many people, he was the M1 in waiting prior to that leg injury that's seen him miss the front half of the 2025 season. Again, he is not cheap, but he is unique, at least at time of recording. That might bump as the round goes on. But it does showcase that there's not a lot of premium mids we've got a high-end trust in at the moment. Not that we think that can regularly hit 110 week on week on week, but the way Errol's score building is and the way the Swans move the ball, those 2 things combined do make Errol an outstanding option. To go alongside that, he's unique at that 2%. And the fixture for the Swans, specifically inside midfielders. Now, I know he's not always on the inside, but he plays in a very similar stylistic capacity to them, is awesome, especially from round 19 onwards. Where they've got North, they've got Essendon, they've got the Eagles. I mean, my goodness me, if you look at premiums that you do not want to come up against in certain blocks of 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 rounds, there's a period of them that Nazia's in that mix, a Whitfield and Ash are in that mix, and I think there's a run of games that Errol now sits in that spot that if everything we believe he can be continues to unfold, it's going to be worth spending over the 1.05 million to get your hands on Errol. And then my number 10 trade target. I told you I'd give you one with an asterisk. Let me give you the asterisk in a moment. But in his last 3, this player's averaging 77. Not great. In his last 5, he's averaging 94. Not great. And he's a player that regularly, over the last 2 to 3 weeks, we've been trying to get out of him. But I'd like to put this guy on the table as a trade-in with one giant asterisk. My number 10 trade target, Zack Merritt. I want to put him on the mix. It is rare you get a guy that is consistently, over his pedigree and his history, is a 105 to 110 performer at just over 900k. Super rare. And again, he could be cheaper in a week's time. But there's a reason why I want to put him in the mix for you. Number one, we've already mentioned that juicy matchup this week against the Gold Coast Suns that Jye Caldwell has. The number 2 easiest inside midfield scoring team over the last 5 and 10 weeks is the Suns. So from a matchup perspective, it's outstanding. But it's not just about the matchup, because Zach's had a role change really over the last 5 or 6 weeks out of that midfield mix. And a large causation of that, at least from a narrative perspective, has been a depleted injury bunch has hit the Bombers. Likes of Ridley and Reed probably are the most prominent two that are out of that side, that are some of their better ball users, now I know they're tall players, but they're some of their better playmakers and ball users. And they've been flushed with inside midfield options, especially with the returning of Parrish, that the decision was, well, we'll move our best kick, or one of, outside of him and Nick Martin. We'll put him in a position to set up the play and wait for the others to return. But this sliding doors moment could be happening this week. And it's why he's at number 10. Because Parrish has injured himself at training, unfortunately, yet again. And it does look like, again, this is clearly, you're watching this maybe, it's a premiere, it's a Monday. The injury list hasn't landed, but there's 2, 3, as many as 4 of Essendon's injured crop coming back in. A number of them will come straight back into that AFL team and are a part of that defensive 7 core. That those two worlds colliding, an injured Parrish out, a returning bunch of leaders and good ball users for Essendon coming back that they trust to move the ball a bit, could correlate into a perfect moment where Zack is back in the midfield. And if Zack is back in the midfield with this price point, even that break even is not safe. I love what this could be, and it is a high-risk move. Maybe you've come out of the buys and your ranking isn't where you thought it was going to be. Maybe a couple of your moves didn't quite land. A couple of you traded into a Bontempelli at a higher-end price point, or a Kennedy at a higher-end price point. You missed the value of the Bergmans and the McKerchers for whatever reason. Why or how, at this moment in time, I'm not really too fussed about. But you need to do something to just get away from everyone and do something unique. If these variables land, let's watch the injury list of Essendon, but if these variables land, and watch for Thursday night teams, then absolutely you make some money off an Adam Chera. Risk profile through the roof, I get it. But these are the type of moves you should be looking and considering, is high risk and open yourself up. Personally, and here at the Coaches Panel, I know a number of us, myself, Minimunk, Kane, Rids, Jordux, Louis, all of us would have a very, very similar mandate to you, which is if you're in contention, you'd rather risk it to try and win it rather than just float around the edges and just get there by staying in the mix but never actually making bold moves to win it. And so this is a bold move. It's got that big asterisk of what's happening on that injury list, but I'm happy to put Zack Merritt there. But what are the trades you're making this week in AFL Fantasy? I'd love to know what they are. Here's the deal. If I've named any player of the now just 2 trades you're making this week, you have to like the video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do so. We've got videos dropping every single day that there is no AFL on during the season. And in fact, this week, you know what? We'll throw an extra couple of videos in, as well as the strategy session, and we'll do a Super Coach trade targets. I'll also tell you who I believe over the next 8 weeks, the final 8 weeks of the year, who I think are going to be the best 22 players for AFL Fantasy for the rest of the year. We'll drop that video a little bit later in the week. Hey, thanks so much for watching, for liking this video, for subscribing, and for commenting below. I'd love to know your team moves this week. Good luck with the trades you've got to make this week. A couple of weeks out before you hit league finals and a couple of weeks out before you get a real good sense of what you've got to do to win the car and snag yourself a hat. From all of us here at the Coaches Panel, we wish you well, and we can't wait to be chatting with you again on the channel real soon.